stamp duty is a tax that is levied on documents. Historically, this included the majority of legal documents such as checks, receipts, military commissions, marriage licenses and land transactions. A physical stamp had to be attached to or impressed upon the document to denote that stamp duty had been paid before the document was legally effective. More modern versions of the tax no longer require an actual stamp. The duty is thought to have originated in Spain, being introduced in the Netherlands in the 1620s, France in 1651, Denmark in 1657, Prussia in 1682 and England in 1694. Australia. The Australian federal government does not levy stamp duty. However, stamp duties are levied by the Australian states on various instruments and transactions. The rates of stamp duty vary from state to state, as do the nature of the instruments or transactions subject to duty. Some jurisdictions no longer require a physical document to attract what is now often referred to as transaction duty. Major forms of duty include the transfer duty on the sale of land, businesses, shares and other forms of dutiable property. Mortgage duty, lease duty and duty on the hire of goods. Rebates or exemptions are available from transfer duty and mortgage duty for those purchasing their first home. Denmark, a temporary stamp duty was introduced in 1657 to finance the war with Sweden. It was made permanent in 1660 and remains on the statute book although it has been substantially altered. Most stamp duties were abolished from January 1, 2000 and the present Act only provides for stamp duties on insurance policies. Stamp duties on land registration were renamed and transferred to a separate statute but remain essentially the same, that is 0.6% on deeds and 1.5% loans secured against real estate. Hong Kong, according to Schedule 1 of Hong Kong Stamp Duty Ordinance Cap 117, stamp duty applies to some legal binding documents as classified into 4 heads. Head 1, all sale or lease transactions in Hong Kong immovable property. Head 2, the transfer of Hong Kong stock. Head 3, all Hong Kong bearer instruments. Head 4, any duplicates and counterparts of the above documents. One example is shares of companies which are either incorporated in Hong Kong or listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Other than the said shares, HK stock is defined as shares and marketable securities, units in unit trusts, and rights to subscribe for or to be allotted stock. Stamp duty on a conveyance on sale of land is charged at progressive rates ranging from 1.5% to 8.5% of the amount of consideration. The maximum rate of 8.5% applies where the consideration exceeds 21,739,130 Hong Kong dollars. In addition, in response to the overheated property market, the government has proposed in 2010 and 2012 2 further types of stamp duties in respect of conveyances on sale of land, Head 1AA/1B, Special Stamp Duty, Head 1AAB/1C, Buyer's Stamp Duty. The Special Stamp Duty was enacted by the Legislative Council on June 29, 2011 and would take effect from November 20, 2010. An enhanced rate of the Special Stamp Duty and the Buyer's Stamp Duty was enacted by the Legislative Council on February 27, 2014 but would take effect retrospectively from October 27, 2012. Ireland. In the Republic of Ireland, stamp duties are levied on various items including credit cards, debit cards, ATM cards, checks, property transfers, and certain court documents. Stamp duty was originally a progressive tax with more expensive the house brought the greater the stamp duty rate. Until the budget of 2008 when the stamp duty tax was set at 1% for properties brought up to the value of $1 million and 3% on the remaining amount with a certain exception for first-time buyers. Singapore, from 1998, stamp duty in Singapore only applies to documents relating to immovable property, stocks and shares. Purchases of Singapore property or shares traded on the Singapore Exchange, are subject to stamp duty. Applicable rates and more information can be obtained from Inland Revenue Authority of Singapore. Legislation covering Singapore stamp duties are found in the Stamp Duties Act. Sweden. Swedish law applies a stamp duty on property deeds, at 1.5% of the purchase value. In addition, a stamp duty of 2.0% is levied on new mortgage securities for properties. United Kingdom. Stamp duty reserve tax was introduced on agreements to transfer certain shares and other securities in 1986, albeit with a relief for intermediaries. Stamp duty land tax, a new transfer tax derived from stamp duty, was introduced for land and property transactions from December 1, 2003. SDLT is not a stamp duty, but a form of self-assessed transfer tax charged on land transactions. On March 24, 2010, Chancellor Alistair Darling introduced two significant changes to UK stamp duty. For first-time buyers purchasing a property under £250,000, stamp duty was abolished for the next 2 years. This measure was offset by a rise from 4% to 5% in stamp duty on properties costing more than £1 million. United States, although the federal government formally imposed various documentary stamp taxes on deeds, notes, insurance premiums and other transactional documents, in modern times such taxes are only imposed by states. Typically when real estate is transferred or sold, a real estate transfer tax will be collected at the time of registration of the deed in the public records. In addition, many states impose a tax on mortgages or other instruments securing loans against real property. This tax, known variously as a mortgage tax, intangibles tax, or documentary stamp tax, is also usually collected at the time of registration of the mortgage or deed of trust with a recording authority. European Union, stamp duty is approached by the European Commission regarding raising of capital. Council Directive 69 EEC of July 17, 1969 concerning indirect taxes on the raising of capital stated that transactions subject to capital duty shall only be taxable in the member state in whose territory the effective centre of management of a capital company is situated at the time when such transactions take place. When the effective centre of management of a capital company is situated in a third country and its registered office is situated in a member state, transactions subject to capital duty shall be taxable in the member state where the registered office is situated. When the registered office and the effective centre of management of a capital company are situated in a third country, the supplying of fixed or working capital to a branch situated in a member state may be taxed in the member state in whose territory the branch is situated. The spirit of the Council Directive 2008/EC of February 12, 2008 concerning indirect taxes on the raising of capital is that capital duty interferes with the free movement of capital. The proposal for a Council Directive of September 28, 2011 on a common system of financial transaction tax will amend this Directive 2008/EC, but it is not published in the official journal. This Directive 2008/EC acknowledges that the best solution would be to abolish the duty, but allows those member states that charged the duty as at January 1, 2006 may continue to do so under strict conditions. With this stamp duty directive, member states may not levy indirect tax on the raising of capital to capital companies in contributions of capital, loans or services provided as part of contributions of capital, registration or other formalities required before commencing business because of the company's legal form, alteration of the instruments constituting the company, particularly when involving the conversion into a different type of company, the transfer of center of effective management or registered office from one member state to another, a change in the company's objects or the extension of its period of existence. Restructuring operations. Indirect taxes are also entirely prohibited on the issue of certain securities and debentures. Further reading, Stamp Duty on Shares and its Effect on Share Prices, by Bond, Steve. Hawkins, Mike. Klum, Alexander, Finance Archive, Public Finance Analysis, Volume 61, No. 3, Article, see also, Financial Transaction Tax, Stamp Duty in the United Kingdom, Transfer Tax, References.